Women in the history of Australian sport and to the present day have encountered various gender barriers. This presentation will discuss areas in which women in sport are unfairly represented, discriminated against because of their sex, and are often disadvantaged culturally, politically, and within the Australian economy. Historically, Australia's colonial beginnings comprised of a male-dominated society. This is partly due to the ratio of male convicts to female convicts transported to Australia. Only 15% were women. Sporting activities, which were introduced by Britain during this period, excluded women. Hence, sport can be viewed as an extension of male hegemony. It is perhaps the exclusion of women during early colonisation that has set an unfair precedence for women today. Furthermore, Adair and Van Plu commented that the history of Australian sport has been dominated by men in all areas. It is therefore not surprising that women have taken a secondary role in sport. The sports media contributes to the ongoing discrimination of women, construction of gender values, and reinforcement of dominant cultural ideals in Australian society. It is the lack of media coverage and underreporting of female athletes that devalues women in sport, despite their increased participation. In 2008, on free-to-air television news in Sydney and Melbourne, male sport occupied 81% coverage to 9% of female coverage. Indeed, horse racing received more airtime than women's sport. In 2010, Australia's national football team, the Matildas, won the Women's Asian Cup. This has been the highest winning honour of any Australian national male or female football team. However, television coverage during this time was minimal in comparison to the coverage of other male football matches. Sports management is another area in which women are heavily underrepresented within Australia. The majority of Australian sports organisations still retain conservative values and are inherently gendered. Stronach and Adair provide a case study of the 2003 amalgamation of the Men's Australian Cricket Board and Women's Cricket Australia, which is now called Cricket Australia. Despite the successful merger, women within Cricket Australia still lack political power and equal rights in decision-making. There are no women on the board, thus creating exclusionary power. In Australia today, sportswomen are still challenged with the inequality of prize money and earnings. Women are discriminated against in an economic sense despite their dedication, training and sporting achievements. In 2001, world number one golfer Kari Webb threatened to boycott professional golf tournaments unless prize money and sponsorship for women was increased. During the golfing summer of 2001, the men's Australasian Tour offered $12 million in prize money over 11 events, whereas the Australian Women's Open only offered $400,000 and Australian Ladies Masters $500,000. IMG event promoter Jonathan Field at the time commented that the difference in prize money was due to not enough interest in women's golf. Cycling, basketball and football are also other sports where women earn less. Another area in which women in sport experience discrimination is sports funding. Two examples of this inequality are as follows. Firstly, in 2012, Basketball Australia allowed extra funding for male basketball players to fly business class to the London Olympics, whilst the female team, the Opals, had to fly economy. Secondly, the recent decision by Cycling Australia to suspend the development program in Europe for female row professional cyclists. The decision was due to funding cutbacks. Finally, Indigenous Australian women have experienced cultural and gender discrimination in sport, despite their achievements. This is a form of double discrimination due to their sex and race. Australia has had several outstanding Aboriginal female athletes, including May Chalker, Yvonne Cawley and Faith Thomas. However, their successes have often gone relatively unnoticed. It is now 2015 and over 200 years since colonisation. Equality for women in all areas of sport is a must.
created using Powtoon.